Are European farmers dupes of Putin, or are they being crushed by imports of Ukrainian grain, right? What's going on with these farmer protests? And so I did a little dive in this because it came up last night in Peter Alexievich's live stream, which, by the way, is really great. I just recently discovered it. If you like Ukraine, check it out now and then. He does a really good job of giving you an overview. It's an American living in Ukraine reading the papers, right? It's great. Point, though, is one of the things that came up last night are these farmers' protests. And so there was a lot of discussion of what it is and a lot of complaints that Ukraine grain isn't that big of a problem. Why are they protesting? Is it Putin? Okay. So I did a deep dive into what's behind the protests. And wow, to take the dive metaphor, the water was choppy, riptide, undertow. I got the hell out as quick as I could. But to try to bottom line it up front, I think we have three layers. We have the economic at the foundation. We have economic headwinds that these farmers are facing that I think are an existential threat to them. But it's about corporatization, right? And so that's a threat to small businesses everywhere. Then they have the government policy, right? Which is more what they are actually protesting, right? Because that's something that the government can do. And that's an issue for them. And then on top of that, Ukraine grain coming in, right? Imports of grains, of agricultural products from Ukraine have come in, and in general, they're supposed to be moving through Europe, but they do come in and they have had effects on prices. So the Ukraine grain is gasoline on an already burning fire, would be my point of view on it. And to kind of, so is Russia impacting this? I'm sure they're trying to, but we do have a lot of legitimate issues. Now let's talk about what they are just a little bit. First, there's the corporatization, and so they feel very threatened by that, right? That corporate agricultural businesses are buying up farms, and so they're they don't use the American terms for it, but way of life, family farms going under, that sort of thing. Absolutely, we're familiar with this. This creates a huge sense of threat, I think, with them. And they would like policies to protect them, although I think it's less clear what those policies might be. At the government level, which is, like I say, I think where a lot of this really is focused. And when you have interviews with the farmers, they lead with these things. For instance, the French farmer. French farmer is one of the leaders of the French protest movement. He leads with the missing baguettes. That, hey, look, the French government tells us that we have to keep 5% of our fields fallow. And they've done calculations of how much grain would be grown and how many baguettes you could make from that. And they're like, there are these 120,000 missing baguettes on each farm or whatever, right? The point is that they are leading with that, and they are, with that story, trying to make their problems understandable to the French public, because honestly, I think that's a huge problem for them. They have to explain why they're complaining. And agricultural policy is complex. It's a business. And you're also, as a farmer, you're trying to explain to people why you losing money is more important than, I don't know, Exxon losing money, or, whatever, BP or whatever I'm coming up with oil companies. But, why, you should be worried about me losing money, right? So what they have to tell to people. And so they put it in terms of consumers, right? In America, we had, I think, a lot more sympathy for family farms and that nostalgia. I don't know. Maybe they've got that line of reasoning going. But my point is that they have just a lot of issues with their government, right? National policies, and they have the EU government, right? They have that level, and complaints about, hey, my government put an environmental regulation on that hasn't been accepted by the EU, meaning that I've got to do, we're leading the way, and these other guys are free riding on us, right? And that would actually be the academic term for it, that I'm keeping 5% of my field fallow, the guys in Spain aren't. right? Why do we have this regulation before it's an EU thing? That kind of issue, right? Every country, just different issues. So that is, I think, where just a whole lot's going on. But on top of it, we do have the war. We have the influx of agricultural products, and they have gone up. The number, the amount that is flowing through into Europe, wherever it goes through, right? I mean, some of it's even transshipping through Belarus in the last year, right? We have a lot that's supposed to go through Europe and go out, and it has had an effect on prices, right? And whatever the source, whatever the reason, it's there. Now, so the farmers are complaining about that, and they are getting hurt by it. And the thing is, here's where the Ukraine issue comes in, right? Is Russia stoking this fuel, right? Stoking this fire, adding fuel to the fire. Let me separate the metaphors there. It would be weird if they weren't, right? I mean, they've got to be doing it. But I think we have a couple other things that are going on here that we need to keep in mind as alternative hypotheses, right? Rival explanations. Yeah, I'm a boring AF professor. I'm sorry. The thing is that, one, for the press, it's boring, man. I run a podcast called Boring AF Politics. I'm bored with this stuff, right? So the press going in and trying to understand it, right? They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. But hey, Ukraine, we understand that, right? We get it. We get it's simple. Yeah, stuff coming in. You're upset, prices down, but you're upset about Ukraine. Wow, this is controversy, right? Press is going to eat it up. And the press also, kind of the theories of how media works is they need to frame things, right? That framing of a story is essential. And so it's probably easier to frame this all in terms of Ukraine, right? Also, whoever is in opposition to the French farmer, European farmers, and in each country, they're going to have interests that are aligned against them, or they're going to have people that they're attacking who are trying to defend themselves, right? The governments. Well, framing the farmers' protests in terms of Ukraine, right? Pivot to Ukraine. You don't want to explain why French farmers have to keep 5% of their fields shallow. Pivot, you probably heard that term, and bring up Ukraine, that it's important to support Ukraine. And most French people are on board with that, right? There's huge support, right? And so one thing we have to keep in mind is there might be another reason for people to foment and to foment if not fomenting, at least place emphasis on the anti-Ukraine aspects of it because it serves their interests, right? And so anybody who the farmers are against, if we take the premise that, people are generally in support of Ukraine. So that, I think, is generally what's going on here. Kind of a long, hopefully not too loud, briefing here, but that's what I'm going on. And in the future, if you've made it this far, congratulations. And I will in the future come back to this with more of a complete and graphically, better than a talking head. I'll try to do better.